A hodgepodge. It's a boondoggle hodgepodge. Most expensive movie ever made. The Electric State is a perfectly timed example in Hollywood, and one that should scare the entire industry.
They don't eat, they don't sleep, they don't blink. I blink.
I mean, it won't, but it should if they knew anything about business. You see, this isn't just a movie which is getting panned. Starting at 10% from 10 critics, slowly rising to 23% across 22 critic reviews. If that was the entire story, it'd be normal. I mean, it's got Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt in it, but still, actors make bad career decisions. Still a normal story. What about this flop costing $320 million? Just for a Netflix movie. We're into comedy territory about the incompetence of the people involved, but it's still probably not enough to bring down the entire industry.
999, what's your emergency?
Are you f***ing kidding me?
I think the most interesting part comes when you realise this is made from the Russo Brothers, who've just been given the direction of Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, and have basically been given control over whether Marvel sinks or swims, lives or dies in its next phase. And it isn't looking good. In most endeavours, you're only as good as your last piece of work. And if that was trash, then you have to work hard to rebuild your reputation. Doesn't work that way in Hollywood though, does it? In Hollywood, you can make something that gets 23% review score, then walk into your next job alongside Robert Downey Jr., taking on one of the biggest franchises in modern cinema, and get paid $80 million for the privilege, all the while that your movies suck and you can't make anything that people want. Getting paid $80 million for producing trash it's genuinely impressive to me. Normally in an industry, that would require scheming and Machiavellian manipulation. You'd have to convince people, lie, and commit massive fraud. In Hollywood, they'll just give it to you. As long as you made something that might have been a bit good a while ago, you can ride that reputation to the end of time.
Exactly what you needed, the lost king who could ride you to victory.
Although, according to sources, it does seem that it was Robert Downey Jr. that Marvel actually wanted on the production, and he agreed to only return if the Russos also were the ones directing. They were the only ones he would work with, says a source familiar with the deal making. It might be that Robert Downey Jr. returned and killed Marvel. It doesn't really matter how successful or how well liked an actor is. If that is contingent on bringing back the Russo brothers that want $80 million to produce movies of this quality, just say no. Laugh at them as you instruct them to take a running jump.
Black girl magic!
Because it's not as if the critics had something against Electric State. It had so much potential, especially its commentary on technology and how the internet has taken over everyone's minds. That's a topic that the critics would love. You're just a racist bigot because the internet made you that way, and you really need to listen to me so that I can educate you on how you should behave. That's a message they can get behind. But otherwise, it's wasted potential. Proves that even if you have strong source material and excellent visuals, you can't rise above stereotypes. There isn't a single laugh or a knowing smile to be found in this relentlessly stale ordeal. The most baffling call to arms in recent cinema, a story about how those kids should put down their phones and go hug the nearest corporate mascot. Yes, if there's one thing I want a Netflix streaming movie to tell me, it's that I need to stop looking at a screen. Hey, when you put it like that, all of Hollywood's been given that message for years. Maybe this actually is a conspiracy of Hollywood to get those kids off the internet. You just need to go out and touch grass. We're not going to make anything for you here. No soul, no originality, just a big multicolor wedge. Neither funny nor exciting. Seems less like a real movie than an imitation of one, which is a common criticism of modern movies, that the storytellers have never done anything with their lives. They're not like Tolkien that went to war and so had real life horrific experiences to draw on and put those emotions, experiences, life lessons into his stories. Instead, we've got the Russo brothers. They just watch movies and then make movies about the movies that they've seen. The thing is, this has got to be one of the most predictable failures of all time at any budget. There is no reason you should give the Russo brothers $320 million, you should know better. You shouldn't give him $80 million if Downey says he wants you to work with him, and you shouldn't hand over the future of all Marvel IPs to him, because you should know better. If you're only as good as your last piece of work, well, to find the last good piece of work the Russo brothers did, you'd have to go back a long time. Take the IMDb of Anthony. Well, he produced From, which is essentially a mystery box drama exactly like Lost, which is a soap opera in a small stage, which doesn't tell you anything, doesn't give you any answers, and just drags you on forever until you eventually get bored of being dragged along and treated like a low IQ pleb. I am one of those low IQ plebs. So From, despite the fact I've enjoyed the episodes, I can't recommend anyone watches it, because you're never going to get pissing answers. Next up is Citadel, and Citadel. The perfect example of why you don't give them over $300 million. Amazon already did for one series, and it was a massive disaster for them. That is just one series. Remember, there's 3 of them. Amazon wanted the Russo brothers to create a global spy show with the mothership of a US language version. They were supposed to be related to each other, but independent and distinct. Jennifer Sulky wanted them to make something on a scale that's never been attempted before, and it failed massively. In fact, as it went over budget to $300 million, it made it Amazon's second most expensive show after Rings of Power. Even at the time, people couldn't understand where the bet was being made. Only Jennifer Sulky believed in the Russos. And yet $300 million per season later, that bet was a massive disaster, just like Jennifer Sulky has been for Amazon in general. The issue is, maybe you should learn from this lesson. Don't give them budgets of $300 million. They don't know what to do with them. Everything they do with hundreds of millions of dollars flops. It's a disaster and gets absolutely destroyed. At this point, I'd be surprised if anyone watching this video has seen the Citadel, maybe even heard of it. I mean, Rings of Power was a massive disaster in itself, but at least people had heard of it.
We have a gift. We see what no one else is willing to see.
You'll come for the rings.
But Jennifer Sulky dragged the Russo brothers into Amazon. Robert Downey Jr. dragged them into the Marvel MCU, handing them responsibility for the future of the entire IP. How many more movies can Marvel make that are ass before people just stop going at all? There's only so many gimmicks you have that you can drag out of the closet back into the limelight and get people to give you another chance. Robert Downey Jr. was one of those chances. If he comes back and the movies are awful, that's it. He will have lost his shine and you can't use him again. We've seen this happen before with Doctor Who. They brought Russell T Davies back, got David Tennant back, Catherine Tate, and then destroyed them.
I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
Now, if Cutie Gat was gone and you want to bring Tennant back, he won't be able to do that again. He won't bring the crowds in again. No one will give him the benefit of the doubt a second time, because you're only as good as your last piece of work. So how do the Russo brothers keep getting away with it? Make crap after crap after crap, and they just keep getting given hundreds of millions of dollars in the next movie. Where are the consequences for failure? Where is the time to go away, do some smaller projects, prove that you're a success again before people will trust you with more money? Because they are producers on a lot of different things. But when you go back to being directors, you have The Electric State, Panned, Grey Man, got a 6.5, Cherry, 6.6, and then it's The Avengers. It really does seem that they have been coasting off the reputation that they had for Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War. And I'm not going to say Endgame because it was ass. And yet they make one of the most expensive movies in history, only for it to be reviewed as a $320 million boondoggle. Full review in Spanish. I want to know what the Spanish is for boondoggle, to be honest. That's the most interesting part of that review. I'm going to assume that this is the title of his article. So it would be $320 million most expensive movie in history on Netflix. Quiero Wino Puedo? Which one's boondoggle? I need to know. Distrado con algo? I don't know. I could be dropping every slur in the book here. I'd have no idea. A hodgepodge. It's a boondoggle hodgepodge. Most expensive movie ever made. That's been done before and better for half the price. Is just another display of how the Russo brothers have regressed into something that, at this point, only makes films that are not even worth subjecting yourself to. They are riding off the reputation of the past, but have since turned into different people who simply can't produce their earlier work.
That's like being disabled at a football match, yeah? I mean, she's very close to the action, but hardly likely to score a goal.
So why is nobody listening? Why is nobody paying attention? When you want to give somebody $320 million, why don't you research them? Look them up on IMDb. Ask Amazon, hey, how did that Citadel show go for you? Oh, you burnt $300 million. A series. And 3 series. They all flopped. Internationally. I think we'll go for someone else. Surprisingly undervalue their source material's blueprint. They thought they knew better. Turning a salient, bleak thriller into a whimsical, sanitized mess of mimeographed ideas. Does that just mean copied? I think that just means copied. That just means copied. Look, love, I know the movie's ass, but you don't have to become that pretentious about it. It's a difficult movie to connect with. Who's it for? Millennials who can sense the cynicism in the film's deployment of nostalgia. Fans of the novel who already rallied against the creation of it. It's baffling. Wait, what was the reaction to the trailer?
Hey everybody, welcome back. Trailer reaction time.
Probably not the best example, is it?
Because the war with his boss was wrong.
Oh, I wish I was this guy. I'm not biologically able to generate that much excitement. I can't do it. The Electric State is one of the worst movies of the year. We are only in March. I'd give it some time. It'll get to compete with Russo Brothers' own Marvel movies. Tell me, how does it compare to Endgame? Turned a junk pile aesthetic into a trash movie. Hodgepodge of boondoggle. In its original form, The Electric State is a work of exquisite, smart, alternative history. As a film, it's a waste of everybody's time and energy. Everything from the character design to the story beats feels like the results of ChatGPT prompts. A bundle of ideas we've seen before, ultimately less than the sum of its promising parts. Like, this isn't a movie which is just getting 22% below average. It's 2 out of 5, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 10, 2 out of 5, 1 out of 5, D-. This is want to be difficult when you start using letters rather than numbers. Saying a movie is indistinguishable from AI slop is criticism I try to avoid. It's an insult to the many artists whose time and work was invested in this project. In this, though, I don't care. It's basically what he's saying. It's hard to detect any human creativity. Normally, I wouldn't do it because I don't want to insult the artists. I'll happily insult these, though.
Get her back here right now, so I can loofer her to death.
The Russo brothers are so hell-bent on making this a 4-quadrant family event movie. The 4 quadrants basically are everybody. I know I can't just say everybody. Again, pretentious. They've removed any trace of edge from the characters. Bland teen hero Millie Bobby Brown. To be fair, that's every character she's ever played. The Russo brothers are mainly inspired by the preceding decade. Action figures, junk food, lunchboxes are all hallmarks of the 1980s. The effect is like if a movie was set in a dystopian 2025, which had an obsession with Hawk Tour merchandise. I understand there would be an impulse to return to simpler times, before the robots took over, but I doubt this would manifest in a yearning for such immediately outdated memorabilia. You say that, but look at the movies. People are like, oh, remember those movies, the good old days, back when the Russo brothers didn't suck. This actually does make sense from the Russo brothers' point of view, because when people are watching their modern movies, they will be nostalgic for their previous movies. This is almost like a man looking at his aged wife and thinking, I remember the days when you didn't have to fart to generate enough lift to get off the sofa.
What are you doing? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Poorly utilized budget and cast. That's going to happen with any $320 million budget. Movies just don't need that much money. You can't spend that much money in 2 hours. For a movie to cost that much, you have to waste it on actors, directors, giving them so much money they don't deserve. If the Russo brothers won $80 million to come back to Marvel, how much do you think they got paid for this? What did Millie Bobby Brown get paid for it? An actress that has never brought a single person into the cinema in her life. Could we replace her as an act? Yes, actually, yep. As for the mascots themselves, you'll likely find yourself frantically Googling to find out why such hideous monstrosities of design can be found in a movie with a $320 million price tag. Why such garish CGI was used instead of practical effects. I've actually recently been going back through the extras on things like James Bond or Die Hard, and I am full of, we just need to use miniatures again. They were way better. A toy helicopter getting exploded off a roof looks way better than a CGI helicopter getting exploded off a roof years later. And also, yeah, I don't believe that miniatures cost more than CGI, because otherwise you'd have to explain to me why movies cost $320 million now, and they didn't before. Because inflation won't cause that. Oh, Giancarlo Esposito's in this as well. He's in everything. Always the nemesis, never the bride. In the case of Esposito, I feel casting directors need to enforce a decade-long ban on him being hired in bad guy roles. He's a versatile actor when he's not being asked to retread his Breaking Bad performance under a different name. I've always maintained that the worst kind of bad movies aren't the likes of Madam Web or Megalopolis, as those are at least entertaining, even if they don't function in the ways their creators intended. The Electric State is more like Borderlands, a soulless exercise in the same vein as Argyle or Borderlands, a joyless affair that feels cobbled together by studio executives, desperately trying hard to manufacture a crowd-pleasing success, replicating formulaic generic beats, characterizations that they never stop to ask why anybody would care about the story they're trying to tell. Dear God, use some full stops every once in a while. That's all one sentence. No, the Electric State is a soulless exercise in the same vein as Borderlands or an Argyle, a joyless affair that feels coupled together by studio executives who are trying so hard, desperately hard to try and manufacture a crowd-pleasing success by replicating formulaic, generic beats and characterizations that they never stop to ask why anybody should care about the story they're trying to tell. Woo! Joe and Anthony Russo have made charming blockbusters before, But now, they're following an algorithmic, overfamiliar storytelling formula to the point it feels like ChatGPT should demand the GGA should revoke their credits. And this tells you everything you need to know on why Marvel should be in trouble. Marvel are already formulaic. They already have an algorithm system that they follow, where they just cast people and get a movie off the production line which barely anybody sat down and decided, I want all of this. The fight scenes are already choreographed and set before the script is written, so the script has to write to the next thing. This is how you end up with storytelling of then this happened, and then that happened, and then this happened, because the events didn't flow properly. They didn't flow from the character motivations, with the characters deciding for themselves where the story should go, and the author just following the will of the characters that they set out on first principles. Now instead, they have a place they have to end up, repeatedly. So rather than letting the characters work out how they should, instead everything is on a one track that has to go this way and can go no other, whether it makes sense or not. This is how you end up with Mark Ruffalo on Mickey 17 talking about starting a pure colony when he decided to make this ship one of the most diverse London airport spaceships of all time. Oh, he's a massive bigot, but he's really inclusive. They wanted to tell a story, but they also needed checkboxes, and so they counteracted their own impetus. They contradicted their own story, and that's how you end up with this. For some reason, nobody faces consequences in Hollywood anymore. It doesn't matter how many times you fail, how much money you lose, or seemingly how many people in the industry think that you didn't deserve it. It's even more shocking when there's only a few major players left anymore when it comes to streaming. Netflix, Disney, Amazon. You'd think they'd talk to each other, and when somebody was a disaster at one, they go, don't. He'll do the same to you. But none of this happens, and so nobody faces consequences. And it almost feels like in Hollywood, the bigger the budgets on the movies, the less the people involved with them are even checked up on. The less their history is looked back on before they get signed and given all of this money. Citadel should have taught you a lesson. The electric state has simply confirmed it. And it does mean for Disney, they should be very, very worried. Because it seems that they've just given $80 million to people who are not only not a dead cert, they're almost a dead flop. And at this point, it might simply come down to a question of, how much can Robert Downey Jr. carry them? But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.